Some people dig for bones, others dig for truth. I do both. I'm Dakian, and this is Barren Bones. In the dust of fallen empires, the strangest stories survive. I was born in Deva, a Transylvanian town, cradled by hills and haunted by history, in a place once ruled by empires, where languages mingled like rivers. And there, in the same town, more than a century before me, another boy was born. His name was Franz Nopcsa. He was a scientist, an aristocrat, a spy. He tried to become king of Albania. He discovered fossils that changed the map of Europe. He invented paleobiology. And in 1933, he ended his story with a pistol. My name is Dakian, and I've been following his trail for more than 15 years. Franz Nopcsa and I were born in the same place, Deva. We both grew up in Tsarahatzigului, the land of Hatzig, a cradle of mountains, legends, and dinosaur bones. We were both fascinated by the adventure novels of Karl May. And like Nopcsa, I carry both Romanian and Hungarian blood in my veins, in a land where identity has always been layered, fragile, and fiercely local. We were raised on borderlands, and maybe that's why I've always been drawn to those who don't fit neatly into one box, because we never could ourselves. In 2016, in an article from the Smithsonian magazine called Lost in Transylvania, The Bone Collecting Spy, the American award-winning writer Vanessa Veselka would write, "Arriving in Deva, the city in present-day Romania, where Nopcsa was born, you first notice the medieval citadel, which looms over the city from atop the gargantuan cinder cone of an ancient basaltic volcano. According to local law, a woman was walled alive into the citadel's foundation when it was built in the 13th century to make it stronger." People are superstitious here, says Dacian, who is a great collector of legends. His passion for Nopcsa is evident. Dacian is from Deva too, and for him, the Baron isn't just a great and underappreciated scientist, he's a hometown boy. As a child, growing up under the country's autocratic communist leader Nicolae Ceausescu, Dacian tells me he visited Nopcsa Castle, then an orphanage. "Who owns this?" he would ask. "The people," they said. "Yes, but who owned it before?" He got no more answer. As an adult, he began to do his own research, and for the past 5 years, he and his partner Laura Vesa have worked ceaselessly to restore Nopcsa's name in the place of his birth. It's his vision that Nopcsa's castle be restored and become a center for scientific research. They wrote a major proposal that won Nopcsa Castle a place on a list of cultural sites to be funded by the government. Well, yes, in 2009, I stood in front of the ruins of the Nopcsa Castle in Seychelles. Ivy covered, crumbling, forgotten. But I had a vision of the castle reborn. A local boy asked me if it was haunted. I told him yes, and I meant it. Vanessa would describe the destructions in her article. Sachel Castle, in a part of Transylvania known locally as the Land of Hatzig, is not open to the public, but Dakian, my guide, has arranged for us to get in. I've seen the entryway in old photographs: Persian rugs, a piano, a grand staircase lit by a round cathedral-like window of leaded glass. That is nothing like what I find before me. If it weren't for the window, I wouldn't recognize it at all. Swallows fly through where the panes once were, and sunshine pours down on stairs now covered in rubble. 2 huge ceiling beams have fallen and are lying askew on the landing. Others are detached on one side and hang down precariously. Upstairs, every window is gone. The floorboards are rotten. The walls are pockmarked with holes where treasure seekers, hearing a legend of hidden gold inside, have punched through. We come into what was once a stately library. Dacian points at a bay window. A breeze blows through the sockets. I like to imagine him here reading, he says. In the corner, an ornate wrought iron spiral staircase leads up to nowhere, and I see light coming through a hole in the roof. That visit, a bit more than 15 years ago, became an obsession for me. I wrote a proposal to restore the castle. People laughed. Who cares about a mad baron? But I pushed, I spoke, I presented, and somehow, after many years, the project got approved. The restoration began. Today, the 1st of September of 2025, the doors of the castle reopened, and it feels like the Baron was finally being let back into the world. Franz Nopcsa wrote a poem about his beloved castle. The original is in German, but I tried to translate it to English as accurate as possible. It's called Longing for Home. When in great anger I once left my castle and stray, and banished myself from my home far away, I could not refrain but look back in sorrow. Would we have together another tomorrow? In prayer, I called upon heaven's affection. The castle placed silently in God's protection. I said to myself, again I shall see you someday. I won't bleed to death somewhere else far away. The years go by, the scenery is changing. Why is the old grey wall still standing? Let me return, O God, do not delay a bit. To the old beloved castle, please guide my feet. Well, the faith was cruel, and Nopcsa did bleed to death somewhere else far away. But his castle lives again. Since that fatidic moment in 2009, I followed the Baron's footsteps across Europe. In Vienna, where he studied bones by candlelight. Into the mountains of Albania, where he courted warlords, mapped rivers, and tried to declare himself king. I've consulted on documentaries, exhibitions, even theatre plays. One year, I helped get him into the Guinness Book of World Records for performing the first ever aircraft hijacking in the world. The Guinness World Records page reads, "The first hijacking of an aircraft in flight was carried out in March or April 1919 by Hungarian aristocrat Baron Franz Nopcsa von Felső-Szilvas. Worried for his safety following a communist uprising in his native Hungary, Franz forged papers authorizing him to requisition an aircraft and pilot to fly him from Budapest to Sopron. When the aircraft was a little more than halfway to its destination, over the town of Győr, Hungary, Franz pulled out his pistol and ordered the pilot to fly him to Vienna, Austria. Franz Nopcsa lived an extraordinary life, so much so that writers often edit this incident out in favor of other, even wilder stories. He was a world-renowned paleontologist whose works are still cited to this day, a respected authority on the history and culture of the Balkans, a widely traveled adventurer and government spy, and he once made a credible bid to become King of Albania. Nop-joke. Nopcsa once hijacked a plane to flee Hungary, which makes him the only paleontologist with a true flight response. In 2013, I published the first modern biography of Nopcsa in Romanian. I've written articles, essays, reports. In 2016, I was featured in the Smithsonian magazine as part of an extensive article about Nopcsa. Then there was an award-winning documentary about the Baron. Then more study, more research, detective work, more travels looking for clues. Sometimes I think I know all there is to know about Nopcsa. But still, he surprises me. There's always something new around the corner. You don't chase Nopcsa. He lures you in. Subscribe, watch closely. The clues have been there all along. So who was he? He discovered fossils in his own backyard, fossils of dwarf dinosaurs, which supported a theory that would only be recognized a century later. He was always accompanied by a man named Bayezid Elmas Doda, manservant, secretary, bodyguard, friend, and maybe more. They traveled together, studied together, dreamed together. Nopcsa served as a spy for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bayezid's family was murdered because of that. There is no easy explanation for why Nopcsa has been overlooked for so long, reads the Smithsonian magazine article. Some point to Nopcsa's sexuality as the reason for his persistent obscurity, and Dakian acknowledges that in a country as religious as Romania, the generally held belief that Nopcsa was gay has been a hurdle in his campaign to restore the Baron's legacy. But Dacian is circumspect, maintaining that Nopcsa's relationship with Doda could have been an intimate male friendship in keeping with the adventure books of the time, like those of Karl May, which Nopcsa loved. Dacian proposes something on the spectrum of Sherlock and Watson, Kipling and Gunga Din, a faithful manservant kind of thing. I introduce him to the term bromance, which he loves. Yes, he says, a bromance. Nopcsa was a polymath, a restless genius with a flair for the dandyish. He had a gift for languages and a hunger for danger. He offered himself to lead Albania, promising modern reform and stability. But he was also manic, a bit paranoid, haunted. In 1933, his story ended in Vienna. A gunshot for Doda, then himself, and silence. Nopcsa's story is more than just eccentricity. It's about science and identity, about queerness, empire, and the cost of obsession, about living at the edge of reason and recognition. For years, he was buried in footnotes. A scandal, a joke, an afterthought maybe. I wanted to change that. In this series, I'll guide you through the strange, brilliant, fortunate, but also tragic life of Franz Baron Nopcsa. Together, we'll uncover dinosaurs, spy missions, poems, secret letters written in invisible ink, court intrigue, and the ghosts he left behind. Ashes to ashes, fossils to memory. This is Barren Bones. I'm Dakian. Sunny days.